Hey everybody, this is Mike. Welcome back to my channel, Z Motorsports, and welcome back to my shop. Got another little project here on the Jeep this week, so I figured I'd do a video of it, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. Last week, the wife and I went to Ouray, Colorado for our annual wheeling trip, and we met some friends there and did quite a bit of wheeling in the San Juan mountain range there. And throughout the week, I think I must have cracked my left upper rear control arm mount on my axle. The last day we were there, we were doing Governor Basin, and we were doing a little extra credit obstacle out around a rock garden, and it wasn't very technical really at all, but as I was coming back around, joining up the main trail, I could hear something grinding. It sounded like a dust shield grinding against a brake rotor. So once we got down off the trail down to the main, it was real hit and miss. First I thought, well, maybe I got a rock between my dust shield and my rotor. It's not uncommon. It's happened. I've had it happen a couple times, and I've seen it happen to other people quite a bit. So we got down off the main trail. I crawled underneath it, looking around. I thought it was the front. It wasn't the front. By now it wasn't making any more noise. So I thought, well, maybe the rock flipped out. I thought, well, while I'm at it, I'm going to go around and check the back. So I went around and checked the back, and I noticed the rear upper control arm, where it bolts to the axle bracket, the bolt hole was literally torn open, and the bolt was still through the control arm, but it was just kind of sitting there. And that's what would make with the bolt, every time it flexed just right, the bolt would push against the dust shield would rub against the rotor. And so that was the noise I was hearing, but it wasn't a rock, it was that bolt pushing against the dust shield. So I just figured, okay, I'm done wheeling for the day. We was going to go to Yankee Boy Basin. The group went ahead and went on. I'm glad they did. I didn't want to hold up the group, so wife and I just kind of nursed it back to camp. We were probably 7 or 8 miles of dirt road getting out to the Box Canyon, and then maybe a mile out of town is all. So, and then from town down to camp. So we probably had 15 miles to go, and I just nursed it along, and it was fine. We got down into camp, and I laid there underneath trying to figure out what to do, because we have to flat tow it back home behind the motorhome. And the right side was still holding pretty good. It was cracked, but it was holding good. So I went ahead and just pulled the left upper control arm off, and we basically ran. I didn't feel comfortable driving it that way, but flat towing it where you're not putting any power to anything and it's just rolling along. We made it to 400 miles back home, no problem. Basically, it was just 3 lengths for the tow home. I stopped a couple times and checked on it, and everything was fine. So we lucked out. We made it home, no problem. So I went ahead and threw it up on the lift and got inspecting it. And I'm going to go ahead and fabricate some beefier brackets. The stamped steel ones that Jeep put on there. Well, they're Dana 44 rear axle. They're the most. They're probably 1/8 inch stamped steel. The welds were kind of so. So I'm going to fabricate some 1/4 inch thick plate and box it in and make a really nice beefy bracket. I'm going to do the other side while I'm at it, and more than likely probably going to do my shock brackets too, because they're kind of so. They're made out of the same material. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that, and hope you find it interesting. All right, so here's my left upper rear control arm. So here's where in one of my previous videos where I built the new ends with the Johnny joints on this end, and this end I used the rubber encapsulated bushings. So there's the piece that broke off. You can see it looks like the majority of this was broke recently, but there's a lot here and over here that probably broke earlier in the week of wheeling, and then it finally broke off. So I'll go over, take you over to the vehicle now and show you the carnage on the axle. So here's the actual bracket. So it looks like this, I don't know if the light's not going to show very good. Looks like this side down here broke first, right to the edge of the heat affected zone on the weld. It broke first, and then probably was just from flexing, and then it just worked away until it literally tore the bolt hole out when it finally failed. So I'm going to cut this whole piece off and build it out of probably 3/16 plate and weld it on. So, okay, grab some measurements and start fabricating. So I've got my cardboard templates made. So for the left side, this one sits like this. This one sits like that. And then once I get those kind of the width, because I'm going to go to a larger bushing. So once I get that done, then I'll go ahead and make the template that goes across the top of the back. So those will sit, actually they'll sit like this. This will go out on the brake on the flange of the axle. This one here will tuck inside, so they'll sit like that. And then I'll put a piece across the back, but I'm going to make this one out of 1/4, this one out of 3/16. So I'll show you on the vehicle here and it'll make a little more sense. So this one will sit like that. Do it on the outside so you can see it. I kind of hammered this all back into place just to kind of get my rough measurement. So that one will sit like that. This one will sit like that. And then I'll weld this piece once I get that part mocked up. So I'm going to go cut these 2 pieces out. Using my big Jacobs chuck here because I'm going to have to step up some bigger bits than my auger will take, so just to see it step in there. Okay. Plus I haven't used my Jacobs in a little while since I've got that all brick, so may as well, right? Eventually, but I'm just going to go to 1/2 inch right now, and then I'll put a 1/2 inch bolt through them while I'm cleaning everything up, and that way everything is exactly just that. That one is done. I'll go ahead and get this other one. Set up. Over each other and use a transfer punch and then come back and so that's how I go about making brackets symmetrical. I get them as close as I can on the bandsaw, drill my hole, bolt them together, and then run them around the disc sander, and there's those 2 are symmetrical, and those two are symmetrical. So now I can start mocking these up. I gotta unbolt these and I'll deburr them, just the sharp edge, and then I'll get the width. I'll probably just use a piece of tubing or something to get the width space, and then start test fitting. Plasma cutter here. This side's already busted off, so I'm just going to run around here and there so I can get in here and clean up the welds. So there's the area all prepped. I've got the weld ground off the top of the flange. I've got the weld all gone and blended, ready for the new brackets to weld on. While I'm at it, I kind of knocked a little bit of the paint off around here. I figured I'd weld this track bar reinforcement bracket onto the perch as well. So anyway, I'll get ready to start welding things back on. While I'm at it, I went ahead and added a bigger gusset up here to my track bar mount, where it mounts to the axle. Burned it in good and deep there. And also I got looking at my shock mounts, which I think are a little anemic. They're made out of the same 1/8 inch as the brackets that failed lower control arm, or excuse me, upper control arm brackets that failed. So I went ahead and made a couple of cardboard templates. There's the outer one and the inner one. So I'm going to go ahead and make some of those out of some 3/16 plate. And there's my templates that I use, and I've got it nested here into some 3/16 plate. So I'll go over to the vertical bandsaw here and cut these out, drill my holes, bolt the likes together, go ahead and touch them up on the disc sander, and then get a spacer the width of the shock so I can bolt them together and get the old ones, the OEM ones, cut off of the axle and get these welded on. Just like my other brackets, I've got once I got them all transferred over to where I had them nested, I cut them out. I drilled one hole in each one, transfer punched it through the other one to get as close as possible. Then I run a bolt through, so this is two of them bolted together, and oh, I need to run that one on the belt. I did it on the disc because that's where I got my 50 grit, and I've got 120 on my disc. Excuse me, 50 grit on my disc where I knocked down the rough, where I rough it out. It was pretty close with the bandsaw, and then I go over it with 120 on the belt real quick. So I forgot to do that one, so I'll go run and do that one real quick, and then I'll bust these apart and deburr them, and they're ready to bolt together. Cut the old one off and weld the ones on. So I went ahead and ran around that one with the belt. Go ahead and separate them. There we go. There's those two. And those two. So that way I know I've got them symmetrical, side to side, and those are ready to, that one will go like that, that one will go like that. So all I got to do is put the bolt, I'll run over and deburr these, and then get the width of the shock, put a bolt through there, and get these tacked. So your spacer doesn't have to be anything elaborate. I mean, if you was doing these repeatedly, you could go machine a nice piece on the lathe, round. I just took a piece of square tubing, basically something that the bolt will slip through. So this basically goes together like so. Square it up here on the bench. And that's basically how it'll go on. So all you really want to do is just make sure that the bolt goes straight through and spaces it. I needed a 1.5 inch spacer, and this measures 1.510, so 10 thousandths over. That'll work perfect. Shock will go in there, put the bolt in. This 3/16 plate's a heck of a lot heavier, so now I'll go over and I'll cut the other one off with the plasma. Knock it down, blend it, put this on there, weld it, and hell of a lot heavier duty shock mount. So go come in here, knock that little weld off, and weld off over here. Oh, there's one down here on the bottom, and then that'll go right back in its place. And weld that on. We're good to go. And then I'll probably take a little piece of strap. Yeah, I think I probably will, because if anything, it'll help with getting hung up on the rocks. I'll take a little piece of strap and put across the bottom there. Maybe I'll go do that now before I actually put this on. Cut off of that side. And that's what I'm going to replace it with, right there. So I'll go ahead and get this tacked in place. And I'll put a gusset across the bottom. It's just like it was made for it, right there. So, out comes the welder next. Okay, I apologize. I'm going to go handheld here for a second. We got a lot of work done. I machined a couple of new ends for my upper control arms, or my links, and I'm going to put the bigger bushing in. This is actually a factory JK 2007 to current rear upper bushing. On the other ones, they were smaller, and I used a different bushing, and I'm wondering if part of this problem was because I didn't have enough flux in the bushing itself. So in addition to the weak brackets, thin brackets, poorly welded on brackets, I also probably helped it along by going with my other bushings had less rubber in there, so they would allow less flex before before it was actually starting to go rigid and start twisting. So I'm going to go back to the original bushings, because I like these rubber encapsulated bushings for longevity. So I machined a couple of new. I got the one welded on over here. I'll go over and show it to you. This is for the other side that I haven't torn apart yet. So I'll go over and show you what the end that I've welded on with the bushing pressed in and painted. And then I'll take you over to the axle where I've got all the welding and fabrication, or all the welding done and painted on that. And here's the end that I've painted and installed. You see the bushings pressed in there, and I painted the end. So that's all just drying, ready to go back to reassembled. And I'll take you over to the axle. Here we are at the axle. You can see my my lower shock brackets that are welded on. Got the weld done down here, a little bit on each side and the inside, and the outside, and then I put a plate across the bottom. There's the plate that I welded on for my track bar reinforcement. Here's my bracket. It's kind of hard to see. There's the bracket that I welded on, that I fabricated, and I just took and run a piece across the back, welded it, and run it across the disc sander. And I welded it on the inside of both sides. Outside from the top around to the back, and then I burned it in good across the back here and to the flange by the backing plate. So that shouldn't go anywhere at all. So this is just painted, ready for the paint to dry, and then I can assemble this side. I probably won't show you the other side because it'll be just a duplicate of this side. But I will probably show you the final project when I'm done. So she's done and painted. So I can get up and over, see the brackets there. And these shock brackets, while I was at it, I added a gusset coming off the axle here out to the frame here. And then I added a one underneath that kind of comes over and bends up. So in case I do hit a rock it won't catch on this back side, it'll slide off. And here's the passenger side. Lower shock mounts. So, okay, that's pretty much it. This job's done. Just gotta put a little top off, double check my fluid when I set it down on the ground and torque the wheels on, and this is done. So I appreciate you watching and hope you found this interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.